At the time, I really had a sense that there was something missing in terms of my life. And I really thought the problem was me, that I just didn't fit, even though I found litigation very exciting and I think I was pretty good at it. It felt like somehow it wasn't serving the people that I really wanted to be serving. My clients often seemed to feel more alienated, even when they won. And I had this feeling of distance and an aggressiveness and qualities in me that got exacerbated. Is the kind of opportunity that's really there in conflict, realized that we can really bring peace. But peace only comes if there's justice. And so we have to find a way to go through it all rather than avoid it.
For me, being a holistic attorney is a fairly straightforward concept. There are really some good things that come from the learned side of being a lawyer. There are good things come from the experienced side of being a lawyer. So being a holistic lawyer is bringing back into focus many of the sort of best practices of law. Getting back to civility, getting back to humanity in the law, getting back to respect in the law. The things that I think the general public expects lawyers to be, but often finds that they're not. So it is a conscious focus on that piece. The second piece is that we now know a lot about problem solving from other disciplines. So it is making law multidisciplinary in a very conscious way. So bringing information about the role of apology and how that works, information about anger and frustration and the emotional side of the law and how learning about that or having some knowledge about that can help you solve problems. And so those two components together, for me, make holistic law. It's a sort of a more whole approach to the practice of law, a more whole approach to client problems, and I think a more helpful, healthy approach to the practice of law. There is another way to practice. It is more helpful. It is more humane. It is more kind in many ways, but not about being a pushover, but being about sort of more respectful of all the interests that are involved. I do think that's what being the holistic lawyer is about, this sort of never-ending exploration about learning who you are, learning how to better relate to your clients, learning how to better relate to the opposing lawyer and often the opposing client. On account of that, I think results sort of talk for themselves. On account of that, I've had opposing counsel often refer clients to me. I've had opposing litigants try to hire me for their family members when they had a problem. So here are the people that I had either sued outright or were main witnesses accused of wrongful behavior, and yet they came to me to help solve their family problems. So it was done in a way where I think they still felt respected. Yes, I pointed out that there was a problem. Yes, there was a problem that needed to be corrected, but I didn't vilify them. And I think that's a sort of an important differentiation as you learn how to be a better lawyer, is learning that not everybody is all good or all bad, and that's important to think about when you're practicing law. And it's important to remind your clients about when they're involved in a matter with someone on the other side who's like them, not perfect, and like them wanting respect, and like them wanting dignity. And that if you show those things or demonstrate those things, that we can all come to a much faster solution.
As a lawyer, the most important thing is the quality of my client's life. And the quality of their lives, I think, going through the collaborative process versus contested litigation anyway, is dramatic. People have a fear of public speaking. When they do these, what are you afraid of? Death, drowning, public speaking. It's always at the top. Well, being in court or having your deposition taken or something like that is, public speaking squared or cubed, because you risk public humiliation or being attacked in public. And the collaborative process, that's not just not part of that. So their quality of life, the client's quality of life, the children's quality of life, I think in most cases is dramatically better than what's available to them in the other process. But wait, there's more. Quality of my life is better too, and on a number of different levels. On those days when I'm called to go to the courthouse, and I still go down there, rarely do I feel constructive. I get a result, but probably personally, professionally, I'm at my most destructive self at that courtroom, because I'm either trying to destroy the other people's arguments at the very best of things, destroy their credibility. You can't attack without hurting something, and that's what's going on down there. And so I don't always come home feeling great from that. In the collaborative process, I feel like I'm being constructive, trying to solve a problem and in a constructive way, not trying to fix something by destroying something else. And so just that feels great.
With criminal law, after about the first year, I did what I thought everybody was supposed to do. You know, they were found guilty or pled guilty, and I sent them to jail. And I'd say, don't drink, don't use other drugs, and then they would. And I was shocked. And they would come back, getting in the same trouble for the same substances all over again. And so I would ponder that first year as I increased their sentence times over, and they kept doing it anyway. There's something different about these people that I'm not understanding. And unless I'm going to engage in senseless acts for the next 20 years, I need to figure it out. So I started taking classes in chemical dependency. Addiction. What an issue. No wonder they keep doing it, because they can't not do it. And I said, we have to do something better, because what we're doing is ridiculous. And it's expensive, and it doesn't work. I've been in the problem-solving court business from the very beginning, and just saying that that's the only thing that makes sense.
You know, I had a friend, a psychologist, who said, laws are made when spirit fails. And in one way, I think that's a very interesting perspective, that if we all had our hearts in the right places and we were all doing the right things all the time, we wouldn't need to be regulated and structured. But on the other hand, there's anarchy that's possible. And to have a system of the law that works and that reflects the authentic values of a culture in the best possible way is a really inspiring goal. I think a lot of the law has greater depth and potential than we realize, because we're trained to use it in a rather narrow and strategic way. But I think that if we expand the options and look at that place not where law and spirit are separate, but where law and spirit come together, that's a very high aspiration. And where the people who are working in the law are congruent, where what they're doing in their daily work is really congruent with their higher value system. That, to me, is the higher calling of the law. You know, I've thought a lot since leaving my law practice and then coming back into the law about whether there was something missing in legal education. And for me, in looking back at it, I think that the emphasis on the rational and the logical and the cognitive process, by implication, and sometimes explicitly, said emotion doesn't have any place in the law. And I think, I can speak for myself, I bought into that culture so completely that I lost touch with my own emotional scope. I think that happens to a lot of lawyers. They forget how to feel because it's not important, or they're told that it's not important in the law school setting. And that carries over into their lives. There have been really, really interesting things going on in neuroscience these days. They're fascinating experiments, and one of the things that's been discovered is that people who make decisions purely from a rational basis can make very bad decisions. The emotional brain and the capacity for an intuitive element to come into decision making is what makes for a really sturdy decision, a good decision, a decision that's a durable decision. Purely rational decisions can be totally, when someone gets a vantage point on them, can be just totally wrong and sometimes cruel. But when that emotional element is allowed to come in, it informs the rational process in a really potent way. And beyond that, of course, you know, the emotional lives of lawyers sometimes are just, the divorce rate is bad, lawyers have so many problems as a group. All the statistics about lawyers who are depressed, who have different kinds of psychological problems, it's heartbreaking, again, to have such a talented population. And I think a large part of the suffering is because of being severed from feelings, from emotions, and from the body, of basically just turning into a talking head. So the whole issue of lawyers and emotions is a really compelling one for me. I think it's something that needs to be reintegrated into law school in a really healthy way.
My name is Sharif Abdullah. So I got my undergraduate degree at Clark University in Massachusetts, and I got my law degree at Boston University. To me, power has three aspects. Power is access to resources, power is access to information, and power is access to the decision-making ability. If you don't have resources, if you don't have the correct information, and if you don't have access to the decision-making ability, you don't have power. If you have all three of these things, then you do have power. So I've been going around in this country and going around in other countries to people who are theoretically powerless, people who say, I don't have power, and say, oh, wait a minute, in this situation, you do have the right information. You do have your own resources. You do have the ability to make your own decision, although somebody else may be telling you that you can't make this decision. But when you have these things, then yes, you do have power. That power, to me, comes from the power of connected human beings, of people who come together in a community. I call that inclusivity. Inclusivity being the idea or the notion that all of our lives are inextricably linked with each other. My life is linked to your life. My life is linked to whoever's watching this. And I don't have to know the person for our lives to be linked. I don't have to like the person for our lives to be linked. I'm not trying to create a popularity contest where everybody likes everybody. I'm trying to get us to the point that we recognize that our lives are inextricably linked on this very small planet. And if we don't start acting like that, if we're acting like I can drill holes in my end of the boat and nothing really happens, I can watch somebody setting fire to their end of the boat and saying, oh, well, that's them, that's their karma. When we start recognizing that all of us are inextricably linked to each other, then we can start seeing some things happening in a very, very different way.